Hi everyone, welcome to day 29. One more day to go. Today I want to talk about something that I love to talk about, which is hormones. And I really just want to touch the surface of hormones. I actually have an entire workshop and an entire class devoted to hormones and helping to balance hormones through lifestyle changes and diet and those kinds of things. But I really want to make the connection between happiness, health, and hormones because hormones can be balanced just by focusing on the other two H's, the happiness and the health pieces. There are some cases where additional supplementation is needed, but for the most part, hormones can be balanced just by focusing on happiness and health. So let's start by talking about health. This is just a recap of what we've talked about so far, talking about primary and secondary foods. So this is the nourish phase that we talked about. So in the middle, we have secondary food, and those are all the nutrients that we need, the water, the micronutrients, the fats, the carbohydrates, and surrounding that is the primary food. So this is the health piece of happiness, health, and hormones. So if we're focusing on primary food and focusing on getting good secondary food and only these 5 groups of nutrients, then typically hormones will start to become balanced on their own. So let's talk a little bit about what hormones are. Hormones are actually chemical messengers that are released from cells in the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is made up of about 9 glands, not about 9 glands, it is made up of 9 glands. And these glands are shown on the picture on the right. And what this system does is it basically controls and regulates every single function in the body based on these different signals that are produced. So some of these signals are electrical or neurological, and those are the neurotransmitters, and others are chemical signals, which are the hormones. And these signals, both electrical and chemical, they influence behavior, emotions, different brain chemicals, how you turn food into fuel, or whether or not you store those calories for later. So it basically regulates your metabolism and your fat storage and all those kinds of things. It also determines your shape or your physique. So, and hormones determine where on your body you actually store your fat. Hormones also control your rate of aging. So if you have an imbalance, then usually your rate of aging is sped up. And some examples of hormones that we've probably heard of before are estrogen, cortisol, thyroid hormones, and insulin. Okay, so this just goes into a little bit more detail of what hormones are, and this goes back to Biology 101 in my little figure here. So the endocrine cell spits out this little chemical messenger called a hormone, and that travels through the bloodstream, and it's picked up by a target cell, and it binds to a receptor on each target cell. And so that means that when the target cell has that hormone in place in its receptor, then that cell carries out some function, or it inhibits the function of some metabolic pathway. So these hormones are very important in determining how cells function. Every single cell in the body has hormone receptors, and if we don't have enough hormones, or if we have too many hormones, or if that receptor site is actually malfunctioning, then we will start to see symptoms of hormonal imbalance. So what's the hormone connection to health? So we have our secondary and primary food, and hormones actually influence all of those things and are influenced by all of those things. So there's this direct connection. So if we're not eating proper secondary food, our hormones don't have the building blocks that they need to be made. They don't function properly. Our cells don't recognize the hormones that we are producing. And there's also, if we're not eating high quality secondary food, then we might be ingesting chemicals that act like hormones, so they have a similar structure, and so they're able to bind to those receptor sites. But the function that they're supposed to be carrying out for those receptor sites actually doesn't work. So if we're clogging our receptor sites with these so-called endocrine disrupting chemicals, then we may experience hormone imbalance, whether or not our body is producing enough of that particular hormone. And then hormones can influence our food choices too, right? So if we're stressed or if we are extremely emotional, we reach for the salty, the fatty, the sugary foods. So hormones have an effect on what we choose to eat, and what we choose to eat has an effect on our hormones. And every kind of primary food also has an effect on our hormones, particularly the stress hormone, cortisol. Cortisol is very, very important in determining hormone balance. So when we lower cortisol and we allow cortisol only to be released when we have a stressful event, which, I mean, a stressful event is going to happen, but if that cortisol stress response is turned on all the time, then that starts to affect all other hormones in our body. So we need to really focus on reducing our cortisol, and we can do that by nourishing ourselves with primary foods. All right, so let's just touch briefly on happiness. Albert Schweitzer said, "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." And this is something that I tell my clients all the time, because they come to me and they usually tell me something like, "I'll be happy when," or "when I'm successful, then I'll be happy." And so it's really the other way around, because when we're happy, then success follows. So I like to use positive psychology with a lot of my clients, where we actually focus on the positive. And happiness is based on the individual's state of health. So if somebody is very healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, then they're typically very happy. But happiness can also be based on wealth, personal development, and relationships. And everybody has their own idea of what happiness is, but it's very important to realize that happiness does come from within, and it doesn't come from being in a relationship with a particular individual or having a certain amount of money. It really comes from within and is based on the condition of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Happiness is created by simple, easy things that we can do every single day. So you can control your happiness just by thinking about it. And unhappiness is created not by doing those simple things every day. All right, so let's put them all together. So hormones, happiness, health, they all affect each other. So hormones and happiness affect each other. Health and happiness are integrated, and hormones and health are integrated. So it's really important to focus on your health and do everything you can to increase your happiness factor. And if you just do those two things alone, then the hormone balance will follow. And that's usually what I tell people in my hormone workshops, is that we really need to focus on our underlying health and boosting our happiness, and that will just naturally follow the hormone balance. Balanced hormones lead to healthy skin, hair, and nails, high energy levels, reduced cravings, increased sex drive, and eliminates a lot of those symptoms of hormone imbalance that you may be experiencing. Okay, so that's all we had for today. I hope you guys now understand the connection between hormones, health, and happiness, and realize that they're all interrelated, and you really can't have hormone balance without proper health and without happiness. All right, so that's it. Thanks.